Good day to everyone. Today, me and my team members, which are Niveta, Guhanandini, and Deva Kumari and myself, we are going to be presenting about a short story called The Monkey's Paw. First, let me introduce you to the story. Okay, so in the 20th century, William Waymark composed a horror story which is called The Monkey's Paw. The novel feels real despite discussing mysterious scenario and concern due to the realistic location and characters. The author is able to convince the reader that they shouldn't wish for things that they do not need. That is it from me. Now I would like to pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Good day everyone, my name is Nivita. So now we are going to look at the background of the author. So on September 8, 1863, William Waymark Jacobs, popularly known as W. Jacobs, was born in London, England. The ageless classic horror tale The Monkey's Paw, for which he is best known. The Docklands would appear regularly in his later literary works. The initial book of Jacobs' collected works was published in 1896. A monkey's paw talisman that grants desires all too literally creates sadness and anguish in the story The Monkey's Paw. In total, 18 books with 13 collections and 5 novels were written by Jacobs throughout his lifetime. Our author married famed suffragist Agnes Eleanor Williams, who had been imprisoned the year before participating in a protest. One of the 19th century's busiest and best known British authors was our author Jacobs. So that's all from my side, guys. Bye!
Hi everyone, I'm going to explain the background of the story. So the story that we have chose is The Monkey's Paw. So the Monkey's Paw genre is horror genre. The story has been copied and adapted numerous times since its first published. Doors slam unexpectedly, and the stairs creaked, and the ticking of the clock break the silence as the story begins. On a rainy, dark night where the whites reside. Components actually increase the suspense of the readers and make sure the readers know that the worst is yet to come. Jacob's turning of the loving, joyous white family into a family who dwells into sorrows and Jade is another aspect of classic horror. The most noticeable changes that we can see is in Herbert, who goes from a loving and playful child to a living corpse. After Herbert's accident, parts of Mr. and Mrs. White's also perish, also develops the obsession of dying and losses in their lives. When Jacobs contrasts the happiness of the White family with the reader's expectations, he makes uses of the classic horror literature. Readers also cringe when the Whites crack harmless jokes, like for example the one that they joke about the monkey's paw, because readers know that something bad is about to happen. In writing The Monkey's Paw, Jacob drew on a variety of well known literature sources to create a story that was both familiar and unsettling. The story of the Aladdin and the Magic Lamp was one of the most inspired story that got Jacobs into creating a story like The Monkey's Paw. Other than Aladdin, one of the most famous tales, something like 1001 Nights, or we can simply call it as the Arabian Nights, which how Mrs. White refers to, is one of the most recognizable influence for this story. There are numerous versions of Aladdin's story, including Walt Disney's popular 1990s cartoon. However, nearly all of them argued that successful wishing is impossible because magic doesn't really work as how people expect it to be. In The Monkey's Paw, Jacobs uses the same structure pattern as how the other three wishes stories are. The first wish produces unsuccessful or unsatisfactory results. The hastily made the second wish fails to reverse the first wish, which actually gotten the situation even worse. But the third wish managed to undo the disaster the second wish has made.
Okay, so now I'm going to be talking about the critical description and the summary. The plot centers on a strange Indian Adalit that was cursed to offer its owner three wishes. In the opening scene, Sergeant Major Morris exhibits to Mr. White a mummified monkey paw and describes its characteristics. Mr. White decides to try the paw soon after the encounter and makes a wish for £200. Mr. White's second request is to bring his kid back to life because his wife demands it. However, as Mr. White hurries to open the door after the family hears a knocking in the middle of the night, her husband goes to the paw, which causes the knocking to abruptly stop. Jacob leaves the story unfinished as a result, leaving the reader to speculate as to whether the third request was for his son to be returned to his grave. That is it from me. Now I would like to pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamisha. So today I would like to talk about the critical discussion on literary aspect and language aspect, and also our personal opinion as whole. So based on the literary aspect, now I'm going to talk about the main character of the story. So the first character will be the Sergeant Major Morris. So he is an English soldier who returned from the India with the bewitched monkey's paw. The second character will be the Mr. White. Mr. White is an ordinary conversation guy whose curiosity caused him to wish on the paw. The third character we're going to see is Mrs. White. Mrs. White is a caring, restrained woman who asks her husband to revive their son's life after he died in an accident. So the last character will be Herbert White. He is Mr. and Mrs. White's. After his parents grant their first wishes, he will pass away in a factory accident. So now I'm going to talk about the setting of this short story. So the main setting of this short story will be Lebanon Villa, which is Mr. and Mrs. White's house. Merging and Mall factory will represent as the second setting. Herbert worked at the same factory where he died. So lastly, we're going to see country India, which is the last setting of this short story. So in this story, the country of India where the monkey's paw originate, and it's mentioned. The monkey's paw will be brought from the India by the sergeant. Now I'm going to talk about the conflict which happened in this short story. So there will be three parts. Firstly, we're going to see man versus man, because after the sergeant tells the story to Mr. White, the sergeant will throw the monkey's paw into the fire, but he will save it and be ready to test its effectiveness. Nextly, we're going to see man versus himself, because there will be some problems. Sergeant will warn against using the monkey's paw. After he make the first wish, his son will pass away, and he will be unable to wish for him to come back because he will be afraid he would appear deformed. Lastly, man versus nature. The major will advise Mr. White not to use monkey's paw, but he will continue in doing so and lost his son and a happy family relationship. Mr. White didn't even care about the problems he might face for using the curse and magical monkey paws. So next we're going to see the theme. This is related to the fact that our action will fail if we try to control the fate. This story make it very clear. So now we're going to see the main thing, which is the plot of this short story. So firstly, we're going to see the exposition. The short story will begin with exposition in which Mr. White will spend his time with his son, Herbert White, while they waiting for a visitor, which is the major. Next, we will see the rising action. After the sergeant arrived at the Mr. White's residence, the story's rising action will begin. After talking with them about the monkey's paw, Mr. White will decided to keep it with him. After he fulfilled his first wish, his son will pass away, and Mrs. White will force him to make the second wish in order to save her son's life. They will be believe it is son is knocking on the door when they hear the sound of the knocking door. Now I'm going to talk about the climax. So when Mrs. White tries to open the door, the story's climax will start. She didn't move no matter how hard she tried to stop her. He will begin to look for the monkey's paw. The door banging sound will stop when the process of falling will. In order to see her son enter, Mrs. White will open the door, but when she does, the street will be empty. There will be no one at the street. Lastly, the resolution. Mr. White find the monkey's pawn after for looking it. The story resolution will begin. The wish he makes is for his son to die again, and after which he will no longer to able to use the monkey paw. So next we're going to see the language aspect. So firstly we're going to see the imaginary. Everything is described by the author in a suspensefully way, like the monkey paw. The author will use visual to describe himself. The second is the mysterious man. He will talk about the man who was waiting at the gate. So now we're going to see about the simile. The monkey's paw will represent the story's simile. For example, when Mr. White recalled his first wishes for the monkey's paw with Mrs. White, he will say, "As I wishes, it squeezed my hand like a snake." Next will be Herbert. After Herbert White passed away, Mr. and Mrs. White carry out their final wishes to bring back their son back. Mr. White will recall that his son will rotting flesh would enter the door like the living dead when they are heard the knocking sound on the door. Now I'm going to talk about the metaphor of this short story. The sound of a door knocking will serve as the story's metaphor. Mr. and Mrs. White will hear a knocking sound at the door as they realize their second wishes to have their sons return. Mr. White would tell how his son's decomposing body would approach the door. Now we're going to see the foreshadowing. Firstly, the monkey paw. Firstly, we're going to see the monkey paw. The monkey paw was thrown into the fire by the major to sign the, the danger that the magical charm will represent to Mr. White. Next, we're going to see allusion. Arabic Night is the allusion. When Mrs. White heard the story of the monkey's paw, which is told by the major, she would reply, "Sounds like the Arabic Night," for example. Now we're going to see the symbolism. The paw, which is represented as the story symbol, consider the paw, the image stand for desire and greedy. Secondly, we're going to see is the chess game, which is played by Mr. White and his son. This it will be symbolized as life. So now we're going to see the tone of this short story. The tone of the story will be the one of the supernatural kind, and the monkey paw is what given in this story is aspect of mystery. So that's it from me. I will pass this slide to my other member. Thank you.
The Monkey's Paw is more than just a horror story because it also has a contemporary allegory replete with moral lessons and advice on how to lead a contented life. The moral of the tale, as with other fables, has well known: don't tempt fate and be careful with what you wish for. Despite not having much money, the White's family still has all their needs. When I say their needs is love, happiness, and also a nice lifestyle. Mr. White also claims that he has no wishes because he is pleased beyond beliefs. When he finally decides to make his first wish, he wishes for enough money to buy their house. The wish is actually made partly because of just and partly out of curiosity, but his modest and reasonable wish is enough to tempt.